What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Hurricanes Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. I'm your host, Rudy Rodriguez Show. Mod, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. We're talking about this game. The big game is coming up Saturday, 12 noon. We'll be right here, right behind us. Right behind us. We'll be doing that live. So be sure to jump on board and have a party with your boy. It's going to be fun. I'm going to make it entertaining as I always do. I'm hoping that we're cheering most of the game and not having me going off the cuff, losing my mind, because this is it. It's do or die, win or go home. That's how it rolls. That's cliche as hell, but it is the reality. It's win or go home. Don't play around. So here, this video, man, we're talking about Casey Concepcion, man. Casey Concepcion is the Texas A&M leading wide receiver, and we're gonna do a little bit of a dive into this dude. But before we jump in, let me give a shout out to our sponsor of the show, Natalie Lopez, attorney at law. Natalie Lopez, when life hits hard, the law firm of Natalie Lopez hits back harder. She practices in the criminal defense area as well as family law based out of Fort Lauderdale. She covers the entire state of Florida. You can reach her at 954-888-8833. That's 954-888-8833. You can also reach her on Instagram at nat.guilty. That's nat.guilty. She will fight for you. Thank you, as always, Natalie, for your continued support of our show. Let's jump in on this bad boy here because we're facing off with Texas A&M, and we are right now a 3-point underdog. So the line has shifted a little bit, actually. It started up at 3.5, and it has now moved down to 3. At least that's what I saw earlier today. Let's see if it's still at 3 or if it's moved again. I don't know. But when I looked at it earlier today, it was 3. It is at 3. It opened at 4. Now it's down to 3. So what you're seeing here is that there's some money being put on the Miami Hurricanes. Money is being put on the Hurricanes. So there is some confidence in the Miami Hurricanes, despite the fact that I've watched a number of podcasts pick Texas A&M just because. No logical reasoning other than just because. And because I've listened to them and I've heard what they've had to say, and they go blah 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 blah. He's like, I don't really know. Okay, well, if you don't really know, then you're just throwing out a bullshit prediction and you don't really have any conviction behind what you're saying. And that's fine and dandy. That's a lot of people nowadays. They just talk, and have no conviction or facts or data to back anything up that they had to say. Now, Miami Hurricanes have a couple of keys to victory, and I mean, we'll talk about them more as this week progresses, and we'll do our preview later on in the week. But one of the players that Miami has to really keep a focus on, and that's Casey Concepcion. He is the leading receiver for Texas A&M. Like it's Casey Concepcion, and then it's the rest of the dudes. They got a guy by the name of Mario Craver, right? He is their number 2 wide receiver. He's got 52 catches for 825, but Casey Concepcion only has 5 catches more for 886, but he's their number 1 target. He is their number 1 target, and the Miami Hurricanes are familiar with him. So, you know how people look at Malachi Tony and game plan for Malachi Tony? Well, people game plan for Casey Concepcion. Miami is familiar with him, though, because he was at North Carolina State for a couple of years. And Miami played against him a couple of years back. Miami lost 20-6 at NC State. And he had a fairly decent game, but one of the things that Miami has dealt with this year, and it's happened a couple of times, is dealing with that number 1 wide receiver threat, which has caused them problems. And I'm not going to sit here and pussyfoot around it. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to keep it real. And when it comes down to it, particularly against Louisville, Miami struggled to handle Chris Bell. It was not a pleasant experience. He picked us apart, and he got what he wanted when he wanted it. It was really hard to watch. He went for in that game. I mean, what did he have in that game? It was pretty bad. He had 9 catches for 136 and 2 touchdowns. He had those 2 basically crossing routes that went for touchdowns. I'll tell you what, that in itself was a bad memory for me. But that is the type of situation in which Miami can ill afford to allow Casey Concepcion to go off. So that means what? That means Miami's got to double team this dude. Miami has to have focus on this guy and really has to dig in on him and make Mario Craver be the guy that beats him. When you look at Like even again against, and then you had SMU. Jordan Hudson had 11 catches for 136. Those two games that we lost are the games in which we let number one wide receivers go bananas on our ass. And that is one thing that we cannot allow to happen in this game against Texas A&M. Concepcion has 57 catches. It's not like he has 1,000 catches. He has 57 catches. And he doesn't have any per se spectacular game. Look at this. You look at the stat box. I mean, his high this year is 7 catches. But in the 7 catch game, I mean, he went off against South Carolina, 7 for 158. And he had 7 for 113 against Auburn. So those were his two biggest games yardage wise. But he creates issues, and the Miami Hurricanes have to ensure that they do not allow him to become an issue, because if they allow him to become an issue, it will make everything a lot easier for Texas A&M. Now, people might think Marcel Reed this, Marcel Reed that. Yeah, Marcel Reed's the quarterback. You have to contain him. There's no question about it. You got to contain this guy. But when it comes down to his playmakers, you got to shut down. You got to make sure that you lock in on Casey Concepcion. You cannot allow this guy to be the guy that beats you. You have to make other guys make plays. That means, yeah, you're going to need to double team this dude. You're going to have to treat him the way they're probably going to treat Malachi Tony. They're going to have people all over Malachi Tony. And look, he's still going to make plays. Doesn't change the fact he's not that. He's not the player that Malachi Tony is, in my opinion. Malachi Tony is better than him, but Malachi Tony is still going to get the ball, whether it's they're going to put him at quarterback to run Wildcat, they're going to run him on end of rounds, they're going to run it. I mean, hell, the swing passes. They're going to run 1,000 different things for Malachi Tony to get the ball, and I think that's something that Shannon Dawson has truly figured out in the second half of the season. To where you're gonna make sure that Malachi Tony touches the ball at least 15 times. If Malachi Tony doesn't touch the ball 15 times, Miami Hurricanes lose. Like I put it right now. I put it on right. I put it on my. Give me a Bible right here. Malachi Tony does not touch the ball at least 15 times. Miami will lose. And if you notice what happened in the last few games, after I made this statement a few weeks back, earlier in the season when I said Malachi Tony has to touch the ball at least 15 times a game. And I believe it was the NC State game where that started, where I said it before that game. He has to touch the ball 15 times a game. And I'm pretty sure that was the game. And he started touching the ball like crazy. I mean, against Pitt, against Virginia Tech, he touched the ball pretty much the entire game. The ball was going to him all game long. Let me see what the NC State game was. He had 5 catches. He had 1 carry. He had 2 passes. Maybe I said it that game. I think it was maybe Virginia Tech. Well, either way, I said it at some point late in the season that he needed to touch the ball 15 times per game. And this is a game in which he needs to touch the ball 15 times. He needs to touch that ball. And that's how they're going to utilize. They're going to do whatever they can to put the ball in Casey Concepcion's hands. And he is the guy that Marcel Reed is typically going to look for. He's a big play threat. And this is a big play team that Miami's playing. Like we can't BS ourselves here. Texas A&M is a big play team. That's how they play. They're not going to dink and dunk their way down the field. Now, could they come up with short passes to try to create longer plays? Absolutely, because that's really how you stop. That's how you can slow down the Miami pass rush, is by running quick passes, which is what Louisville did, which is what SMU did. So you have to actually have something to counteract that. And I'm sure Corey Heatherman, the defense corner for Miami, has something in store for this to prevent that quick pass attack from hurting you and from getting under you. Because the reality is, I don't think A&M's going to be able to run the ball in Miami. Like I don't care what the numbers say. I don't care what their numbers are. They're not going to be able to run the ball in Miami. I don't believe they will be, and we'll be able to. I just don't see it happening. Marcel Reed is a mobile quarterback, but Miami has completely shut down all mobile quarterbacks, which I talked about in a prior video. That mobile quarterbacks against Miami have not been successful. Running the football. So they have no choice but to throw it, because they're being locked down. And the only guy that actually busted over 50 yards in rushing was Castellanos, and it took him 16 carries to do that. Total numbers for rushing yards by the mobile quarterbacks versus Miami was 74 yards this year total, all of them combined. Mobile quarterbacks have not been a problem for Miami. What's been the problem for Miami's defense at times is that short passing game. And you have to be very, very aggressive, in my opinion, defensively. And you have to jam wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. You have to make it hard for them to get off the ball. Can't commit penalties doing this, but you have got to make it very difficult for them to get off the ball. And Casey Concepcion would be target number one. You cannot let that dude go off. Again, he hasn't had a bunch of big catch games. He's only got 57 catches. You think that, the way they talk about him, that he's like the second coming of God, or that he's Jerry Rice reincarnated. But here's the reality. Miami has seen him before, not just in terms of seeing him on film. You know what you've seen on film. They've seen him in person. They've played him before. They know what he is. They know who he is. So I don't think there's going to be any shock factor for the Miami Hurricanes in terms of there are probably players on this team that played against him a couple years ago when he was at NC State. Mario Cristobal was the coach, so he knows who he is. So I don't think this is going to be anything out of the ordinary for them. But he is a guy that Miami has got to slow down, got to contain, and got to keep him under wraps. Because what you don't want to have happen is that big play thing. Miami did not give up tons of big plays in the air. I mean, people, I've heard some other podcasts where they say, Miami this, Miami that. The deep ball wasn't a real problem this season. I don't know if people realize that. It wasn't a big problem. Where we got caught by Louisville were those crossing routes, those short crossers. The crossers to Chris Bell killed us. Like, they flat out killed us. And you have got to take care of those crossers, like those short routes that turn into more yards because you're not tackling. That is where you have to that's where you got to make your money, man. And so I'm not tremendously concerned as a Hurricane fan, and someone who watches the game with a closer scope on this thing. I think Miami's gonna be fine personally, but Concepcion is the guy that you got to erase. You got to erase him. You got to make Marcel Reed go right, look for Craver the whole game. You got to make him look for Craver the entire game. It's just that simple. That's my opinion. I mean, and I'm sticking to it. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts in the comments. And I mean, you may go look over at Craver's numbers, and yeah, he's got some decent numbers. I mean, but this is a big play team. That's what they are. They're big play. They're feast or famine. And if you do your job, I mean, it is a team that you can really, really, have an impact against. I mean, again, they're solid. Craver had 52 catches. I mean, he's a big play threat too. But when you look, I mean, overall, he's had some more he had bigger games. I mean, he had 207 catch receiving versus Notre Dame, 7 for 207. So he is, you know, some people, but he's also been completely erased against Florida. I mean, even though he had a big play against Florida, he had, two catches for 77 yards. He had a 1 for 6 for South Carolina, 4 for 42 LSU, 4 for 40 Arkansas, 4 for 34 Auburn, 5 for 44 Texas. So I think that's really what Miami needs to be looking at is shutting down Casey Concepcion, making sure he can't get off, and then you got to live with Mario Craver being the one that beats you. Seriously, you got to live with that guy being the one that beats you. That means you're double. I'm not saying you're double teaming Casey Concepcion the entire game, but you definitely are bracketing him and ensuring that he's not going to get off on you. And so on top of that, keep and shut down that short passing game because they're gonna I haven't seen teams beat us deep most of the season. So it's like I'm not overly concerned about getting beat deep. Now it may bite me in the ass and it may come back and they beat us deep. But I don't see that happening all that. I haven't seen that happen all that often this season. And while this is a very explosive offense that the Miami Hurricanes are playing against, they can also be slowed down. I think we've seen it, and it starts with pressure up front. But Casey Concepcion, that's target number one. That's target number one after Marcel Reed. Obviously, target number one. You want to shut down Casey Concepcion because if you don't get the ball and you make him invisible, you give yourself a much better chance to win. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We will be live tonight. I apologize. I was going to do the live this evening, but you heard Dolphins were playing. I'm like, no, I'm going to watch the Dolphins game, watch them play like shit as usual. And we'll be here tonight, 9 p.m. Hurricanes Unfiltered Live. Do not miss it. We'll be here to chop it up and get ready for this game. That's all I got for y'all. Let me know y'all thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hurricanes Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. Come on now.